for $100 million, earlier this year at a bit over $1 billion valuation. And basically what we do is we help lots of like Web3 companies with their security and to make sure that they're safe. Yeah, and for Quantstamp, we have our main product is that we do security audits, and we also have a security monitoring product. We have an insurance product that we've built. That's one of the world's first like licensed Web3 insurers. And we basically help projects from the very earliest stages until they're like, billion-dollar companies. We also have, early stage investment arm of Quantstamp. So, we've been seed investing in lots of great companies. One of the great things about the company is that we have a lot of senior leaders in the company. So, there's like a dozen guys who could be CTOs of crypto startups. Many of the guys in the company, they've had, 4 or 5 years experience auditing every single type of project in the space, including like DEXs, lending protocols, cross-chain communication protocols, L2s, and so on. And what I was thinking is that I could give a bit of a presentation about bridge hacks. So let's switch to that. So as many of you might know, one of the biggest sources of hacks, I would say in the last year or so, has been cross-chain bridges. And so, it's just because there's so much money on these bridges. So for example, in the Ronin bridge, there was more than $600 million hacked. In the Poly Network bridge, that was 600 million. There's a lot of money at risk right now on the Polygon bridge, and also Wormhole and the recent Nomad hack. So what is a bridge? So basically a bridge is you have assets on one chain, you want to move it to another chain, and the assets themselves, they don't really actually move over. They actually just stay on the original chain. And you create a IOU on a different chain. And the way that you create the IOU is that you have some cross-chain communication that happens, and you have this debt issuance that happens, and on the source chain you have a custodian. So usually this custodian is a smart contract, and you send your assets there. It's sitting on the source chain, and then on the new chain there's some debt that's basically issued. And so in the middle there's a communicator, and this could be really complicated. So when you withdraw, you basically take your debt tokens, you send it back to the communicator, and then the custodian on the source chain, it like releases the funds. So that's the basic idea. And so what are the basic building blocks of a bridge? One is, there's like the custodian, there's the debt issuer, there's the communicator, and that's basically this oracle that is watching and trying to set values on the destination chain. So then all of these things are attack surfaces. So one is like the custodian, 2 is the debt issuer, 3 is the communicator, 4 is like the interfaces, and 5 is actually the network itself. So I'm just gonna, in simple language, try to talk about some hacks that have happened, already, and how they occurred. And each one of these things can be attacked. So my first example is a call relay attack. So depending on the bridge, some privileged addresses can get access to the assets. And so lots of teams design this into their protocols where in an emergency, they can like withdraw all of the assets that's under custody on the source chain. So, the owner of the custody smart contracts, they're actually able to modify this privileged address. And they use this function called change custody address. And in one of the recent attacks, what actually happened was that this communication contract, they have a different function, and it basically allows you to call any function and target any contract. So, that looks very interesting to a hacker. Like, oh, well, okay, I have this privilege, function that allows me to withdraw assets, and there's this other function that I can target any contract. So, what the hacker does is that they basically submit these like bytes. So to one, use the change custody address, and to modify the privileged address to the attacker's own address. And so by doing this, the attacker, after they modify it, they can just remove all of the assets under custody, which is all of the bridge's funds. And so this was actually like a recent attack that happened. So the reason why it happens is because these communication contracts are very complicated, and this function was intended to be used for something else, but it can also be basically used by like an attacker to drain on the funds. Another type of attack that we actually caught and didn't end up resulting in the hack is basically this type of transaction replay attack. So, depending on the custodian, when you withdraw assets, you have to provide a proof to the custodian, and that allows you to take out the money. So this is to prevent people from taking out other people's money. And so these proofs are cryptographic proofs. And in this case, there was like a small bug in the way that the proofs were generated, which is that normally you would hash like the whole, every single transaction. And the way that this proof worked was that you were actually like, it actually accepted multiple types of transactions, and it produced the same proof. So basically what the attacker was able to do was just like generate a whole bunch of proofs to withdraw funds, even though they only had one deposit. So they just like queued up a lot of proofs, and they were able to potentially steal tens or hundreds of millions of dollars doing this. So that's another problem with these bridges. On the debt issuer side, on the destination chain, there's also attacks. So you have like the communicator. They basically send a message that says like, okay, I deposited like $5 million on Ethereum, and I should get $5 million on, let's just say like Polygon. So that message can also be a fake message. And so basically their goal was to bypass this verification so that they can just mint a lot of tokens on the destination chain and basically sell it and crash the debt tokens on the destination chain. So basically what they noticed is that on the destination chain, they had this signature verification contract, and this checked the signature of the communicator. And what they realized is that like the signature verification contract, they could actually create a different fake contract, and this verification contract was still accepted. And so they just deployed a fake contract where it always returns true, regardless of what the transaction is. And so this very small bug where in a different part of the code, they allowed you to submit like these fake verification contracts. It allowed them to basically mint a very large amount of tokens and basically make a lot of money and send that money into Tornado. So so that's this like fake verification attack. For the communicator itself, there's also bugs, and the attacker's goal there is to make it forward some invalid messages that actually shouldn't mint debt tokens. So for this like particular case, what happened was like basically the communicator, they had a small bug where like whenever you send messages to the communicator, like for example, Poseidon deposited $1 million and so on, the communicator would only check the first of the events and make sure that it's valid, but they didn't check all the subsequent ones. So what the attacker did was that they made like one transaction where the first event was valid, followed by a lot of malicious transactions, and submitted that. And so they were able to create a ton of fake debts on the destination chain, and this fake debt, they were able to sell it for money and quickly withdraw. So these like small bugs in the communicator where they're like verifying transactions on a deposit, they can also be a source of attacks. There's also bugs in their interfaces, and they happen to lots of DeFi protocols, not just the bridges, but it's especially dangerous for bridges, which is that many interfaces, they don't check all your inputs. And in this case, you could basically like send the transaction that allows you to call any contract with any call data. And so, the user, they would just normally infinitely approve transactions. So most people, when you use DeFi, you just like click approve and you never revoke those approvals. Mm-hmm. And using this like bridge contract, the attacker was actually able to basically craft a transfer from and use that bridge that you approve to transfer your own tokens.
Hello.
And so that's
sorry,
like
we have to wrap up this.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess like in summary, there's like a lot of ways that bridges can go wrong, and sort of my PSA is always to do a lot of work when you actually like move assets from one bridge to another. It's sort of one of the most hard to get right parts of the crypto ecosystem. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Richard, that was really great. Thank you. I do have one quick question for Richard, deciding if we have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard, are all of these shown, or are most of these code level vulnerabilities?
Well, a lot of it's partly code level and partly design, right? So often like these are very complicated systems with a lot of moving parts. And when you design them, you might like have different engineers work on the different parts of the bridge, right? Or the intercommunication protocol. And what people like use as helper functions in one part of the code, it can actually create an exploit in a different part. And so in some cases, people have made very simple like mistakes that are more like, I would say like code level mistakes. But in other parts, it's more like, it's almost like the coordination issue when you build these like complicated projects.
Yeah,
Nice.
gotcha. My takeaway is it's almost like it's a job for external security consultants, that it's very, very difficult for your company's own developers to be able to, sanitize everything, understand all the security, vulnerabilities, logic flaws, and then build the code, to security. It's almost always that you have to have external consultants to look through this.
Yeah, and like even Quantstamp is not perfect, so we can still miss stuff. And there's basically an arms race going on with risk security right now, because now we have, for example, like just a very professional hacking team from North Korea that's basically going from bridge to bridge and trying to find these hacks. So that's it's also part of this larger arms race. I think when people like launch these products, they're just trying to get user adoption and get traction. And so there's a lot of like competing objectives when protocols launch, right? They want to launch it quickly, they want to get lots of TVL, but unfortunately getting lots of TVL makes it super attractive for hackers as well. So
it will happen over and over again. Thanks for that presentation. It's great to see you.